is the Weigh In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional Pop-Man Sebastian Romero. On this week's Weigh In, we're going to talk to you about really mostly that Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey fight because I was not surprised, but were you? And in the same weekend, Keyshawn Davis fought. Keyshawn Davis fought. So we just, like I like to call it, we got a double header for you. And with that being said, that is this week's weigh-in. We jump right into this one. First and foremost, we're going to touch that Keyshawn Davis because I kind of went back and forth, but we're going to touch that Keyshawn Davis. Keyshawn Davis, I think, is a really good one. I like that Davis was able to get done what he had to get done. If many of you did not see the fight, I would suggest at least take a look at those highlights. Keyshawn Davis was able to go through Albright and do what he had to do. The antics of Keyshawn Davis, I would say, is of what it should. That's one thing I'd like to say. I felt like most were saying, I felt it was a dominant fashion. I really did. I felt like Keyshawn did exactly what he was supposed to do. So that's another thing that if many asked me, that's what I thought. I thought it was dominant. I thought it was in a great fashion for Keyshawn. I thought things was in the way they should be. I think for those that might understand, the clashing that is coming, I like to see little stuff like I call these the little step up fights. Why? Because there's a fights that guys are going in. There's beef. Obviously, like this one, there was beef that needed to be buried. There was beef. Always there's beef. You know how it is. You know how it is. There's always that beef. You know how it is, like always. So over what their beef spans from is over the span to 3 years is what we're getting at. Yeah, so basically they fought in October 23. After Davis tested positive for stuff he shouldn't be, Albright wanted another match, but this time, then the seconds of matter, the wild 2025 locker room brawl, if y'all remember that. At the very let's see. Albright fought and defeated Keyshawn's older brother, Kelvin Davis. Following about a chaotic backstage brawl broke out. And the third was the tension leading up, calling Davis weird and unprofessional during pre-fight weigh-in insults. Is another one I have labeled here. And the fourth one I got a fourth here. Let me see what I put here. Let me see. And then we had a seventh round, what I called it a slam, the seventh round slam. Seventh round slam. So if y'all didn't see that, that's something to just jock your memory with that seventh round slam. I'm gonna go ahead for y'all and get you a refresher because I put my links here to refresh yours because I want to go ahead because I kind of felt like we talked about this. You gotta have some. You gotta have some composure in the ring, and that's another thing that's on topic for today. You gotta have some composure. I for the wrestling guys that like to join the pod, it was basically like if you going in for If you're going in for a high crotch and cutting it off to like a double, that's kind of how it looked. But it was, he kind of, Keyshawn went in there and slammed him. But you got to keep your composure, because not staying composed can lose your bouts. So we're going to talk about that briefly. We're going to really, this goes for all sports, really. So this is one of those things that even if you're wrestling, UFC, jiu-jitsu, you're some of our football guys that really like to watch the pod, and many of others. We have a lot of sports. I can't name them all, but you'd be surprised on who watches our pod, because they all take the time to reach out, through a DM or whatever the case. They're all reaching out, and I just would like to say, composure. For the baseball, softball guys and gals that watch, pitcher can't be on the mound and just decide, hey, I'm gonna just strike a batter. You get yourself tossed real quick. You gotta have composure, because when you don't have composure, that could be the difference between a line drive and home runs. When we talk about some of our basketball guys, that's the technicals. You can get a technical foul real quick when you don't keep your composure. And when we talk about some of our wrestlers, well, you guys are a little unorthodox, because you do have to keep your composure, because that could be the difference between being DQ'd or really just simply giving up 1 point. Sometimes if you do something that's supposed to, you end up giving up 1 point. But really, the wrestlers, it's all about not losing not losing your composure at all. Losing your composure, you could give up points that way. You got to stay poised. And that's today's epi word, I guess, is poised. You got to stay locked in on what you're doing. You got to be locked in. You can't, you can't, you know, you can't, you got to keep your composure. You got to. I get it when you have, give me a second here. I get it when you have rivalries and all of that, and you want to start like getting at each other, but you got to keep your composure. Composure's got to be kept. If you ask me, I really think composure needs to be kept. You know, that's the best way to say it. That you have to keep composure. There's just no way to go about it. You have to keep composure. And I felt for Keyshawn, Keyshawn Davis. I felt for Keyshawn. I felt like he tore up Albright. I felt like Albright was just it wasn't going to be his night. And and this goes to, like I said, if you're going to talk a lot of trash, you're going to do the McGregor, which all of us know. Conor McGregor. Conor is coming back. He's having what many would say a comeback fight. In the UFC, he's going to fight Max Holloway. So I know a lot of you want to break down on that, but when that card starts to fill up, we'll break that down. But for the foremost, that's going to be exciting to see McGregor come back out. It's going to be exciting. But like I said, not everybody can do the McGregor. You go over there, you're talking all the junk, and you back it up. Albright didn't back it up. And here's where I'm going to bring it again to our topic of day, that Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey. I'm going to jump into that. I'm not surprised that Ronda Rousey finished that by armbar. You have to understand that, yes, Ronda Rousey left when she did, but when Ronda got beat, sometimes you can beat people quick finishes, and it happens. But she's brought her way back, and, it goes to the connotation, like I said. MVP MMA, I do think that for Jake and his partner, I do think they need to step back. And I do think Ronda Rousey needs to be, the head of MVP MMA. I'm not saying Jake and them not to be involved in it, but what I'm saying is we need to make Ronda Rousey the Dana White. She knows the business. I'm not saying Jake doesn't. And Jake was saying he wants to fight MMA. That's a whole separate thing right there. Jake and MMA, now that I think we need to see. We never got to see it when he when it was supposed to happen before. Now, hopefully, we're gonna see it. You know, hopefully, hopefully we get to see it. Hopefully. You know, you know, we were supposed to get it with the PFL, but they cut ties, and then guess what? He started his own MMA promotion. It went just like that. I mean, hey, it is what it is. But if you ask me, I do still want to see Jake get out there and do some MMA. Now, and I want to see it because it could be good. Jake Paul, Mike Perry. Think about that. You know, a good. Let Jake fight all these MMA guys in their sport. Jake Paul, Ben Askren, and MMA. Tell me you don't want that. Or you know what? Tyrone Woodley versus Jake Paul, MMA. Now, y'all telling me that Tyrone won't get in there and show us how it's done. Now, I'm not saying who's going to win versus one, but I'm saying it's going to be good. Think about that. Ben Askren, Tyrone Woodley, Mike Perry. Hey. I'm just saying. Listen, get in there with Dylan Dennis. Right. Hey, since you're taking that venture, or I got a better ones for you. I don't know if he'll be doing it at this point, but Anderson Silva, MMA. Oh, yeah. I mean, the question here is Jake ready for it? Because I think we all know he took that Anthony Joshua fight a little too soon, in his career. And I'm not saying that he didn't, but you got to have a full camp. You gotta. And I think seeing Jake potentially against one of them, it's gonna be good. You can't tell me Tyron Woodley won't want to whoop him after the way he knocked him out. Yeah, you'd want to get in there and say, "Oh, I want to finish you." Yeah. And you can't, man, and you can't tell me Ben Askren don't want no revenge. You can't tell me that. Although, whether Ben would be doing things of that sort, right, is up for it. But I'm sure somebody will step in. Hey, Nate Diaz. Oh, no. I'm sorry, but I'm telling you right now, if it's Jake Paul, Nate Diaz, and MMA, I got Nate Diaz all day. Nothing against Jake, but we're talking Nate Diaz here. We're talking Nate Diaz here. We're talking Nate Diaz here. Yeah, let's not. We're talking Nate Diaz here. Jake Paul. Think about that. We're talking Nate Diaz here. So with that being said, it's a lot of like. I think if Jake really does deliver on that promise of seeing him in MMA, that could be real. That's going to be really good. That's going to be really good. I would like to see it. Jake Paul, Nate Diaz. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all, but I want to see that. Jake Paul, Nate Diaz. See Nate Diaz going there. How bad Nate Diaz is, y'all. I don't know. This it, Now the question is, will we see a quick finish? I mean, we got some good fighters that we could line up Jake in MMA that I'm sure would be good. Some of them it'd be good one way, but most of them would be good both ways. And I'm not going to say which way. I'll leave that for you to figure out. But nonetheless, on that Jake Paul flow, I was not surprised by Ronda Rousey's quick finish. This is what we're talking about. She still got it. And that is why I think that there's no better. I think Jake knows he got a guy where he knows the boxing. He's got a partner in boxing, right? And that helped him learn the boxing business. Obviously, we all know Dana White and Jake Paul don't get along. So you're not going to have Dana White that'll tell you how to run the business when you're actively running out there and saying, I want to compete with the UFC. I want to take the UFC and I want to be better. So in terms of that, I don't believe that Jake Paul is gonna will be able to do it on his own. I do think having Ronda Rousey as a partner is a good idea. I do. For those people who don't understand, Ronda Rousey has extensive knowledge and being in the UFC knows what it takes to be up top. It has a rise and a fall, not just a rise, And I really think that will he get some of the guys he should? The pinnacle is still going to be the UFC. Now, as of right now, the pinnacle is the UFC. As of right now. Now, does that mean Jake can't get himself up there? Oh, no, he can. Oh, no, he can. The same way the PFL kind of, it's up there. But let's not all forget how Bellator was doing it first, man. Because growing up, that's what I always saw was them Bellator MMA fights. So we know Bellator's been doing what they do. Do I think Jake can establish himself in the market and do really good things? Yes. But what is Jake's market? Now, I know Jake is trying to say this is going to be legit, but I think Jake's market is going to more than likely be different from Dana White's. I think Jake's is going to be megastar matchups. Like you take, basically like YouTuber MMA, YouTuber, like not specifically YouTubers, but you understand what I mean by that is like, okay, you take like Gina Carano and retired Ronda Rousey, and you put them together and you say, who's gonna do this, who's gonna do this and that. Like you kind of do these like megastar matchup fights, but MMA style. So you kind of say, okay, like you kind of do the ones that people have wanted to see. You say, oh, well, McGregor talked all this stuff about Dylan Dennis, and Dylan Dennis is so I can beat Conor, and you put Dylan Dennis, Conor McGregor, and you say, wow, Dylan Dennis, McGregor. That's what I'm talking about is like things of that nature. But I'm not saying Jake can't establish a legit, and I'm not saying it isn't going to be legit. I'm just saying like that's kind of that's the vibe I saw, when you look at this Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey. And here's my thing. There's a long-standing debate, and I say long-standing because it's going to be a while, to whether there was a full crowd or not. Now, everybody understands that once a fight's over, right, you get up, you leave. Just because everybody's showing pictures of what I like to call the post-fight press conference, or most fights people don't stay around for that. You're saying that they're kind of going around that there was not, big enough fan attraction. I don't call it a fluke because it was a Ronda Rousey fight and she finished somebody quick. I don't call it a fluke. Jake just started his MMA operation. If we could, that's something we could say. The MMA operation. It's not gonna be like textbook flawless. You know what I mean? Like it's not gonna be that flawless. It just got up. So to expect that somebody's gonna be like, man, this is great. Well, what you're most are not understanding is a lot of times when you have these big fights, you have the beef with it. I don't think there was much beef between this Gina Carano. Now, I thought there was some, but not enough where you're like, oh, I got to see that. One's talking a lot about another, and they can't even. You know what overshadowed that fight more than the fight itself? That Clarissa Shields slapped. I'm gonna pull this up. Clarissa Shields slapped somebody. Yeah, I'm gonna get it right for y'all. But that's what I'm hearing more about than I am about no fans being there. That Clarissa Shields slapped somebody. I'm like, hey, if you think you can beat, you can't beat Clarissa in the boxing ring. Well, Jake, we got an MMA operation now. Let's bring that over to the cage. I know that would, but let me get this up for y'all. And what we know is she slapped Alicia Bungardner. So now Clarissa Shields is banned from like all MVP events and is not allowed from to any MVP event now because she slapped Alicia Bungardner. Now, this is what I'm gonna say. That's what I'm talking about with some beef started. And it says Alicia Bombardner wants to. It says that everybody's coming after everybody, and that's crazy because that even happened. Yeah, so that's what Alicia Bungardner was telling everybody. It's a legal matter now that she is really upset about this and is coming after Clarissa. You know, you can't just go backstage and slap somebody and think that's okay. You know, it. I know we don't get into all that on this channel, but it's a legal issue at this point. And MVP is going to stand up for their boxer, Alicia Bungardner. So, do I think that we'll ever see a fight between the two? Well, I think it's possible. The beef is there. The beef is there now. Problem is, I don't nor see them getting in the ring due to the legal issue of them even wanting it. It just. I'm not saying this. I got to make the disclaimer. I'm not saying this because of the gender at all. We all know that Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis was a circus. We all know that. That what I'm saying is, I think right now, if Alicia Bungardner fought Clarissa Shields, it would be a circus because Clarissa Shields has no self control. She went backstage and slapped her. Now I get everybody's gonna say, "Well, hey, you don't have the, we don't have the context here." I know, but there's no good context for two people to get in a heated argument and one slap another. That's just my point. And that's exactly why Clarissa Shields is not allowed at any MVP event anymore. And hey, do I think that fight's not gonna happen? No, that fight's gonna happen at some point. At some point, you're gonna see that fight happen because of what went backstage. And for it not to happen, it's gonna be too much fanfare for it not to happen. Now, will they drag this out? Like the Canelo Benavidez, we may never get it. Yes. Yes, I do see that too. I could see this being dragged out, but this is why we talked about composure, composure, composure. Don't go around slapping somebody because right now, as Alicia Baumgartner says, it's illegal. It's a legal issue now. It's a legal it's a legal issue now. And what that means is there's going to be charges, whether she could be sued, whether this could be for anything, any damages. Because remember, you cause damage to a fighter, and then it doesn't matter even if they're in a fight, not in a fight. You just don't go around slapping nobody. Don't go around slapping nobody without a. Uh, don't go around slapping nobody. I'm not gonna tell you without a good reason, because I'm not gonna tell somebody whether they should or shouldn't do something, because I'll say there may be cases when you do something, but there are cases when you don't do something, and that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna try to keep it as family friendly as it is, and for the and and for the the ones that watch our podcast, don't go around slapping nobody. Don't go around slapping nobody. Don't go around slapping nobody. That's the best way I could say it. Don't go around slapping nobody. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. It's not worth it. Trust me when I say it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Mm-mm. Trust me. Mm-mm. Don't go around slapping nobody. Nobody. That's just what I wanted to. That's a big thing coming out. But mm-mm. Don't go around slapping nobody. Nobody. Because that's what it is. It's a legal matter now, and at this point, that's what it is. And at this point, like I said, don't go around slapping nobody. That's just one of those things that I'm telling you. Mm-mm. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not. It's not worth it. That's what I'm telling you. Hey, 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 hey. It's and the fact that Clarissa Shields was in the VIP area, and this is, this is what I don't like, and this is why I highlight this so much because when you're role model to people, how many people are role model? Clarissa Shields, obviously, you know what? We're gonna bring it up. We're gonna bring it up. We're gonna bring it up. I'm gonna bring it up for y'all. We're gonna bring this up. We're gonna bring this up. I'm gonna bring this up for y'all. We gonna we gonna so we're gonna break it down for y'all. Clarissa Shields, undisputed, 3 different weight classes, and you're going around slapping people in an altercation, not having no composure. And y'all, I know everybody's gonna say it's two different people, but I don't care. I don't really care. I don't really care because we're gonna break this down. Terrence Crawford, how many times he undisputed? 3. Clarissa Shields, she was undisputed 3. Now, Terrence Crawford is being a better role model than Clarissa Shields is. And you know why? Because Terrence Crawford was standing up when a sanctioning body was charging too much. Clarissa Shields is out here about to get herself in a whole lot of trouble. That's just not what you. There's a huge difference. When you're a role model, you got to act a certain way. You got to act better. When you're a role model to people, people look up to want to do better things, and there will always be good and bad role models in life, and that is textbook on a bad role model. You're going around acting like you're the big bad wolf of women's boxing because you undisputed 3 weight classes. But listen, it's the same thing. Everybody's got somebody they run from and they don't want to fight. Well, obviously not Terrence Crawford because he wasn't running from Canelo. He fought Canelo and he won. But what my point here is, you act like the big bad wolf, and when you get humbled, then you're looking and saying, "Oh, look at what they're doing now." Hey, hey, hey. No, no, no. You got to keep the same energy now. You going around slapping people like it's like that's what. So like I said, we in the end of the epi, y'all. I just wanted to. I know I kind of touched a little bit of everywhere, but here's the truth. If you don't take nothing else in this episode and you're still here this far and you're watching this, listen, don't go around slapping nobody. Don't go around slapping nobody. You know, do what you got to do. And, you know, in most cases, you got to always get notify the proper adult, you know, I would say your state's got self-defense. Really understand your laws. Now, I am not an attorney in no way, shape, or form, nor do I claim to be one. That is my disclaimer. Always, if you do something, do not consult the weigh-in. Weigh-in is not certified attorneys. Consult an attorney. Consult, lawyers, people that can best help you understand certain stuff. But don't go around slapping nobody. When you do something stupid, you reap the benefit. You're gonna reap the benefit. If you go ahead and you slap somebody, well, you're gonna get them consequences, and the consequences are always gonna be the same as if the person slapped you, because it's gonna come back at you hard, and that's what happened here. You just don't do things like that. You just don't do things like that, because I'm sure if we lined up the right fight, you can't tell me that there is no female boxer out there that might be able to go toe to toe with Clarissa Shields. I'm sure we could find somebody that'll sure humble her. I'm sure, but it ain't right. Don't go around slapping nobody. But with that being said, this is the Weigh In Podcast. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share, y'all. I want you to like, comment, subscribe, share. Let's do that. And as for me on this one, that's all I got for you. This is the Weigh In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. That's all. Weigh In out.
The Weigh In, where stories ignite.